Hello, this is Ross Bliley from the podcast Pigskin Tales. This podcast is sponsored by Sterling Soap Company. With products sold throughout 41 locations around the globe, Sterling Soap Company has a unique assortment of products to choose from for your loved one for the holidays. Handmade artisan soaps created by Roderick and Amanda Lovin since 2012, these products are affordable and provide great value. Act now and save on your shipping costs. If you purchase $75 or more, your shipping cost is free in the United States. Shop now online at sterlingsoap.com.
Hey there, Sports History fan. Arnie Chapman here from the Sports History Network. Now, before you jump into this episode, I wanted to share with you an exciting giveaway we have going on with Home Field Apparel. We have a digital $50 gift card to homefieldapparel.com for one lucky fan of the Sports History Network. All you got to do is head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/giveaways to sign up. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/giveaways.
This is Basketball History 101 with Rick Loayza.
Welcome back to Award-winning Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network. I am your host, Rick Loayza, and this is the podcast where we bring to life some of the forgotten stories from basketball history. We are bringing old school basketball to a new school audience, and today we bring you the story of Marty Blake. He is not well known to the casual fan of the NBA or even to an average fan of the NBA. Marty Blake has been part of the NBA for over 40 years, but has done most of his work in the background, away from the cameras and the press. About the only time you would have even heard his name is during the months of April and May, and that is because those are the months that sit between the end of the college season and the NBA draft. Today, nearly all of the NBA shows and NBA podcasts are dissecting the skills of every significant college player and overseas player that wants to be drafted into the NBA. They will spend hours of time trying to figure out the order that the players will be selected in the annual NBA draft that happens each June. They will talk about how a certain player will be a perfect fit for a system run by a certain team. You will hear the word upside about 1,000,000 times. Choosing which player to select in the draft is as much art as it is science. You can look at all of the statistics that a player has, and it does not necessarily tell you if that player will be successful in the NBA. And in some cases, a player is selected just by a strong gut feeling on the part of the general manager of a certain team. And just like how some players are significantly better than others, some general managers are better than others. Case in point, look at Red Auerbach of the Boston Celtics. He built a team around Bill Russell that won 11 championships. Then he completely rebuilt the team around John Havlicek to win 2 more championships in the 1970s. Then he again completely rebuilt the team in the 1980s with Larry Bird as his centerpiece, and he won 3 more championships. Jerry Krause, despite all of his idiosyncrasies, got Michael Jordan the help that he needed to win 6 NBA championships. And don't forget, he took a huge gamble on Dennis Rodman, and it worked out. And then there is Jerry West, who built the Showtime Lakers and won 5 NBA championships. Then he signed Shaquille O'Neal and traded for Kobe Bryant in the same summer and won 3 more championships. He was later hired as a consultant with the Golden State Warriors and helped them build their dynasty around Steph Curry. And then there is the guy who is at the center of our story today, Marty Blake. He was born to Jewish immigrant parents in 1927 in New Jersey. He served in World War II and graduated from Wilkes College in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. And in his early days, he was a sports promoter. Now, the one thing that I only learned in doing the research for this episode is that he was the founder of the CBA, or Continental Basketball Association. For decades, that was the league that sat just below the NBA in terms of skill and quality basketball. And then in 1954 is when he became part of the NBA. He was hired by Ben Kerner, who was the owner of the Milwaukee Hawks, and he stayed with the team as they relocated to St. Louis and then relocated again to Atlanta. His first move as a member of the Hawks was to draft Bob Pettit out of Louisiana State University. Pettit was, for a time, the all-time leading scorer in NBA history. Pettit was easily the best player from that draft, and Blake was able to get him with the 5th pick in that year's draft. And then, about 2 years later, is when he made one of the biggest trades of his career. The Hawks had the 3rd pick in the 1956 NBA draft, and he traded that pick to the Boston Celtics in return for 2 future Hall of Famers, Cliff Hagan and Easy Ed Macauley. On the surface, that trade looks like a no-brainer, and the trade did pay off. Just 2 years after that trade in 1958, they won the NBA championship with Hagan and Macauley as 2 of their core players. So the trade, in fact, paid off for the Hawks. So who was that player that the Celtics took with that 3rd pick that the Hawks gave them? Well, Red Auerbach used that pick to select Bill Russell out of the University of San Francisco, and then proceeded to win 11 championships. Now, I have talked about that trade in previous episodes, but I have never really looked at it from the Hawks' perspective. I mean, when you get down to it, if a team makes a trade, and then the players from that trade lead directly to a championship, then that was a successful trade. It just so happened in this case that the player they gave away won even more championships for the other team. But Marty Blake had established himself as a high-quality evaluator of talent. He had a history of selecting players that worked out much more often than they did not. The main reason that he was so successful was that he had access to information. He had built up a network of scouts that could feed him information on virtually every significant player in the country, and on many occasions, discovering players from smaller schools. Once he moved away from the Hawks, he decided to take his scouting network and turn it into a legitimate company, and he started Marty Blake and Associates, his professional scouting service. He and his team traveled all over the country watching games and taking notes on just about every player with even the smallest chance of ever making it to the NBA. And then he would charge for those services. NBA teams could subscribe to his service in order to get detailed reports on all of the top college players and even players from outside the United States. For an NBA general manager, this was an extremely valuable service. Today, there are several big-time scouting services that scour high schools and provide reports on team players on behalf of college coaches to help them figure out who they want to recruit. And some of today's scouting services are sometimes more like detective agencies that dig into the background of a top college player and provide that information to NBA teams. Today, scouting services are an entire industry within the sports world, but it all started with Marty Blake and his professional scouting service. He created a template for all modern scouting services. This is a good place to take a break, and I will be back with the next stage of Blake's scouting service.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
At the Sports History Network, we're all about sports yesteryear, and so we're so pleased to introduce you to Row One, an online memorabilia gallery and shop that brings your sports history to life anywhere. The Row One gallery includes over 5,200 gorgeously reproduced prints of team posters, game program covers, game tickets, advertisements, and more in baseball, pro and college football, pro and college basketball, and more. And any gallery item may be printed in a variety of sizes on wood, metal, canvas, acrylic, or poster paper. And in Row One shop, check out the thousands more of unique items with the retro and historical designs dating back to 1876, including t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, phone cases, mugs, blankets, pillows, towels, and even shower curtains. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com, ROW1, for access to the full Row One catalog and for gallery prints and gift items, plus get a 15% discount off all prints on the Row One Pictorium Gallery with coupon code SHN15. Follow the link on the show notes.
Hello, sports history fans. I'm Ross from the podcast Pigskin Tales. You're about to jump into another thrilling sports history moment, but first, let's dive into today's sponsor, just in time for the holiday season. Introducing Art of Words, the brainchild of word artist Dan Duffy from Philadelphia. Dan meticulously crafts stunning images by handwriting relevant words from some of the greatest sports moments in time. These unique, budget-friendly illustrations are the perfect gift, sparking cherished memories and capturing hearts. Choose from city skylines, sports, history, and musicians to find a piece for everyone. And here's the exciting part. For that sports fanatic in your life, gift them a piece of their favorite team or player's history. Art of Words tells a compelling story. Explore collegiate stadiums, each meticulously crafted with every football victory etched into words. Or venture into baseball stadiums, handwritten with every player from the team's illustrious history. My favorite on the site is Bryce Harper 2021 MVP year. Because I'm a big stats guy, I think that's one of the coolest things ever. Check it out. Don't wait. Order a print today for yourself and your loved one this holiday season. Transform your wall into a gallery of captivating art and surprise your family and friends with a print of their own. Use code SHN15 at artofwords.com for a 15% discount on your order in November and December. Visit Art of Words, where words magically transform into stunning art, evoking cherished memories and touching the hearts of those who you care about. Again, use the code SHN15 for 15% off at artofwords.com.
Welcome back to the show, and let us continue with Marty Blake and his scouting service. As I mentioned before the break, Marty Blake created the template by which all modern scouting services operate. Of course, with today's services, they take advantage of modern technology to provide their reports online along with as much video as they can pull together. In many cases, the players themselves are posting their highlights on YouTube for all to see. But these services are still quite valuable. They do the legwork on behalf of college or professional coaches. But the NBA looked at Marty Blake and Associates and thought that the company would be a great addition to the NBA. So Blake was hired as the NBA's first Director of Scouting. In essence, his company was brought in as the in-house scouting service for all of the NBA teams. Now, every NBA team would have equal access to the full list of information that Blake and his team were producing. And then Blake took it to another level with the annual NBA Draft Combine. It is a multi-day event where NBA prospects come in and are evaluated under the watchful eye of every NBA team. The players are measured for height and weight, their wingspan is measured as well as their vertical jump. They are also put through a fairly grueling set of drills. They go through a variety of shooting drills, jumping drills, speed drills, agility drills, and much more. Then they have to go through interviews and psychological evaluations. And then they are grouped into teams and have to play games to see which of these top prospects performs the best when having to play against the other top prospects. But the idea is not original to the NBA. They got that idea from the NFL, which here in the United States is our league for American football. They had been doing the combine for decades, and Blake took their idea and adapted it for basketball. And by the time the night of the NBA draft rolls around each year, there is virtually nothing that they do not know about each and every draft prospect. They have watched dozens of their games, watched them go through the combine, talk to their friends and family, talked with their college coach or overseas coach, and literally weighed them, measured their wingspan, the length of their legs, the size of their hands, and they all had to go through a physical in order to produce a full medical report on each player. On draft night, there is nothing left to know about these players, and Marty Blake is the guy who developed all of this. Starting in the mid-1950s until the early 2000s, Blake revolutionized the art of scouting a prospective player. He built a structure and made it a process that was as scientific as possible. Just about everything that we understand today about scouting goes back to Marty Blake. His contributions won him the Bunn Lifetime Achievement Award from the Basketball Hall of Fame. Short of being enshrined as a Hall of Famer, this is the Hall of Fame's highest honor. Honestly, I'm not sure why he's not already in the Hall of Fame as a contributor. His contributions to basketball are almost immeasurable. So the next time that you watch the NBA draft, think about all of the work that has gone into evaluating these players to help each team figure out which ones will have the best chance at success in the NBA. The funny thing is that after all of this work is done by the scouts, the coaches, and the doctors, that selecting top players should be a sure thing. When a team has put in all of this work, there should never be a bust. There should never be a player taken near the top of the draft who then has an unsuccessful career. That really should not happen with all of this, yet it does just about every year. There are these players taken near the top of the draft that turn out to be average or even below average NBA players. So that brings me back to what I said at the top of the episode. Drafting a player is as much art as it is science, and we can probably all name a player who was taken with one of the first 3 picks in a draft and then were out of the league within just a few years. At the same time, we could also think of players who were drafted in the second round or not even drafted at all, who then had excellent careers. I'm thinking about guys like Manu Ginobili, who was taken in the second round and then became a multiple-time All-Star and a Hall of Famer. That is what Blake brought to the table, was all of this information and research that he produced. He and his teams were credited with finding diamonds in the rough. They found guys who were not highly touted coming out of high school and ended up at smaller colleges where they possibly could have gone unnoticed. They discovered Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman, Karl Malone, Scottie Pippen, and Ben Wallace. I believe Marty Blake's accomplishments more than qualify him for the Hall of Fame, and I hope he gets in sooner than later. Sadly, Blake passed away in 2013, but his contributions should never be forgotten. Well, that is it for today. Join us next week when we share the story of the friendship between Red Auerbach and Bill Russell. That's next time on Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network, the headquarters of Sports Yesteryear. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com to find out more about this and other sports history podcasts. If you like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. And check out our page on Facebook. It's called Basketball History 101 Podcast, and there you'll find short historical posts about today's game. I'll also announce there when new episodes come out. I want to thank my producer and editor, Jacob Loayza. Join us each week as we continue to mine the history of basketball for more great stories from the past. Take care and see you soon.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.